Yo, I have a secret to tell you. Did you know that the dull tusk on an elephant is their dominant side?
No, I didn't know that. Hello and welcome back to Axoschools. We had a special request for a topic, so that's what we're going to tackle today.
One of our viewers requested that we go over the plant life cycle. So today we're going to learn all about what a plant needs to grow and how they change from a seed into a huge tree.
Or a tree. Wait, or a flower, not a tree.
Yeah, or an aspen tree, which is my favorite.
Or a cactus. But all you guys are right. Little seeds can grow into big things like the giant sequoias in California, or the world's smallest flowering plant, the watermeal or Wolfia globosa. It's found all over the planet. And did you guys know that it's about the size of a grain of rice?
Oh my God. Plant life cycle is not too hard to remember. We're going to use a flower as an example because they're so pretty.
The plant life cycle starts when a seed falls on the ground. There are many different kinds of plant life, but the flowering plants, also called the angiosperms, are the most advanced and widespread due to their amazing ability to attract pollinators and spread seeds.
Yes, I'm going to be creating a life cycle behind me, a plant life cycle, and at the very end I'll share it so that you guys can see it in big picture. But flowers are more than just beautiful objects to look at or decorate your table with. They actually serve a very important purpose in the reproduction of plants.
There are 6 major stages of the flower life cycle. They are the seeds, germination, growth, reproduction, pollination, and seed spreading stages. Yes, not seed spreading, but seed.
The plant life cycle starts with a seed. Every seed holds a miniature plant called an embryo. Embryo.
Yep, and there are 2 types of flowering plant seeds. The first one are the dicots, and the second ones are the monocots. Does anyone know what those are?
No, I don't.
Okay, so let's go over those. A dicot is like a bean seed. It has 2 parts called the cotyledons in addition to the embryo. Cotyledons are the first leaves that a plant has. They are the ones that emerge from the ground during germination. There can be 1 or more cotyledons, so the dicots have 2 of those leaves because di is a prefix for 2. The cotyledons are important because they store food for the plant. A monocot has only 1 cotyledon because mono stands for 1. An example of a monocot is the corn seed.
The seed is also wears a coat to protect itself in the ground. And shockingly enough, this coat seed is called the seed coat.
So we learned about this embryonic seed stage, but what happens when the seed actually falls to the ground?
It will need to be in a place that is good conditions in order to grow.
Exactly. So Kurosh, what are some things that it needs to grow?
It needs warmth and it needs water.
You're right. And some seeds also need light.
Remember those coats the seeds wear? Well, dicots have seed coats that soften with moisture. After they are planted in the soil for a few days, the seed absorbs water and swells until the seed coat splits.
That's exactly right. And now we've entered the phase of germination. This is also known as sprouting. The stem, called the hypocotyl, pushes through the soil along with the cotyledons, the seed leaves. This whole process is the process of germination.
The tiny root pushes down and grows, looking for water and nutrients.
Yep. And soon the cotyledons fall off and the first true leaves emerge.
One really cool thing about seeds is that they all have different needs. Some need to go through fire to sprout, like prairie grass. Some need to go through stomachs of animals to sprout.
Our next stage is growth. In order to complete the flower life cycle stage of growth, plants have to produce their own food.
Yes, and they do this, and this process is called photosynthesis. As soon as the leaves emerge and they can see the sun, they start the process of photosynthesis.
Plants contain chloroplasts in the leaves. These chloroplasts are so important because they convert the energy from the sunlight, carbon dioxide, and water into sugars, which the plants then use as food.
Plants capture sunlight in their leaves.
Yes, they do. And they use a compound called chlorophyll. This chlorophyll is located in those chloroplasts that Mandy was talking about. Chlorophyll is green, which is why so many plants appear green. Fun fact, chlorophyll actually reflects that green light, which is the color that we see, and it absorbs the blue and the red light.
There are two main phases to the process of photosynthesis that we need to go over. The first phase includes the sunlight being captured by the chloroplastis, and the energy stored in the chemical called ATP.
In the second phase, the ATP is used to create sugar and organic compounds. These are the actual foods that the plant uses to live and grow.
The first phase of the process that Kurosh told you about must have sunlight because the leaves are capturing the sun. The second phase that Danielle just told you about can happen without sunlight, even at night.
The plants store the sugars in the roots and stem.
So Mandy's gonna add that onto our plant life cycle.
Yes.
The root system continues to develop. This serves as an anchor for the plant into the ground. The roots grow little root hairs on them, which help the plant to better absorb the water and nutrients.
The stem grows longer towards the sun and transports water and food between the roots and the leaves.
Sugars and starches are changed into energy, which is used to help the plant grow.
New leaves grow from the top of the stem or the meristem.
Finally, flower buds develop.
Some plants flower within days, while it takes others months or even years.
That's right. And once we're at the flowering stage, we can talk about the reproduction step. Inside the bud, a tiny but complete flower forms. The sepals are the part that protects the bud before it opens.
Over time, the bud opens and blossoms into a mature flower, and the sepals look like little green leaves at the base of the flower.
The petals of the flower are often very noticeable, brightly colored and strongly scented in order to attract pollinators like bees. This is the very exciting stage of the life cycle.
Yes, adding that to our life cycle.
That's right. The female part of the flower is called the pistil, and it has 4 parts to it: the stigma, the style, the ovary, and the ovules.
The male part of the flower is called the stamen, and it consists of the long filament and the anther where pollen is made.
Yeah, Mandana, did you have a question?
Yes. So, you know how I said it's brightly colored? Is that why roses are red?
Violets are blue.
Talk about that.
Yep.
I like you way more than you.
Good thinking.
Good thinking. Really good question. In the center of the flower, there is a long, slender tube that ends in a rounded oval. The tube is called the style. On the top of the style is the stigma. Its job is to catch the pollen.
The stigma may be sticky, hairy, or shaped in a way that helps it better trap pollen.
Sometimes several stamens surround the pistil.
Once the pollen is trapped, it travels down the style to the rounded part at the end called the ovary, where eggs are waiting to be fertilized. The fertilized egg becomes seeds in the stage of the flower life cycle. In fruit-producing plants, the ovary ripens and becomes the fruit.
Now, when we're talking about reproduction during the life cycle of a plant, we have to remember a few things. Number 1, some flowers only have male parts. Number 2, some flowers only have female parts. And number 3, in other plants, they have both parts, but the structures are farther apart from one another.
Without pollinators, what?
I think Mandana is going to tell us first about the pollinators.
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
When they are apart, they depend on insects, birds, animals, wind, water, or other pollinators to carry pollen from the male flowers or male parts to the female flowers or female parts.
So without these pollinators, there would be no seeds or new plants in these plant species.
Even flowers that can self-pollinate benefit from being fertilized by pollen from a different plant, which we call cross-pollination. Cross-pollination is important because it results in stronger plants.
Now, there are some adaptations for flowers that help them to attract pollinators, and Mandana was already hitting on this earlier. Mandana, can you name some of these adaptations for me?
Yes, I can. Brightly colored petals, strong smell, nectar, and pollen attracts pollinators.
It's cool because flowers are specially adapted to attract their specific pollinators. For example, the corpse flower smells like rotting fish in order to attract flies.
Ooh, rotting flesh, gross. That's a gross example. Pollen sticks to the legs and wings of insects that go from a flower to flower for nectar and pollen, which they use as food.
Pollen also sticks to the fur of animals and even the clothes of humans, allowing pollination to occur.
The wind can also blow pollen, and it can land on other flowers.
Others rely on animals to spread their seeds. An example seeds. An example of this is the cockleberries.
Yeah, that's a
Cockleburs,
tricky one.
Cocklebirds.
like the little burrs that get stuck on you, the cockleburs.
Cockleburs that get stuck in the fur of animals and hitchhike to new locations.
Wait, Preston,
Yes,
are
and
those
what-
little spiky things that get attached to your shoes?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what Mandana's talking about is seed dispersal. So that is going to be our final step of our plant life cycle. I'm going to add that here. So we call that seed dispersal.
Yeah, and seeds can spread in many different ways. For example, those dandelions that are weeds in your backyard, when you pick them up and you give it a good old blow, and it goes everywhere, that's seed dispersal. What are some other examples?
Once the seeds fall to the ground, the plant life cycle starts all over again.
That's right. So another example of that would have been water lilies, right?
Yeah.
And they depend on water to spread their seeds. And humans also spread many seeds, sometimes intentionally and sometimes not intentionally. Just like us, a lot of people plant gardens, and that's called purposeful seed spreading. Woo, say that 10 times. So now if you look behind Mandy, we have the complete life cycle of the flower. Mandy, can you quickly take us through that life cycle that you created?
Yeah, I'm actually going to pin it so that we can see it a little bit better here.
Perfect.
Yeah, so let me go ahead and do that. Okay, perfect.
Okay.
So,
So I'll start explaining her life cycle.
okay.
So let's start with the plants that we just talked about. When plants go through photosynthesis, they release oxygen.
You're going too far. Mandy's going to go over the plant life cycle, then we're going to go over the next cycle.
Yes. So we're going to review this first, but Kurosh, you're awesome. We're going to talk about that next. Okay. So
Right.
just to review what we talked about, it starts with the seed, and the seed is planted in the soil, and then it goes to germination. That's where the seed grows into a sprout, and then onto roots and stems, or the growth period. And that's where the roots continue to grow. The stem pushes to the soil's surface here, and then to pollination. The plant grows the flowers. The flowers are pollinated by bees, animals, or the wind, like we just talked about, and plants make seeds. Then we get to seed dispersal, the spread or transport of seeds away from the parent plant. You can see that I put some wind there. That is just one way that seeds disperse. And
Nice.
then we're back to seed.
So that was an awesome review of that life cycle we went over. Another cycle we're going to go through, which is what Karosh was trying to get on a little earlier, is the carbon dioxide cycle. So Karosh, will you start out that cycle for me, please?
Yes, I will. So what I was trying to say earlier was, so let's start with the plants that we just talked about. When plants go through photosynthesis, they release oxygen.
Yep, and this oxygen is important because it joins the atmosphere and animals breathe in the oxygen.
Even though we breathe in the oxygen, we also breathe out carbon dioxide. The plants use the carbon dioxide that we breathe out.
That's right. And they need that carbon dioxide for photosynthesis. So this shows us how plants and animals depend on each other to survive. So Mandy, will you go through that for us real quickly?
I will. So I was adding some stickies as we went. This one goes pretty quickly, right? So we're going to start here with the atmosphere. Okay, so in the atmosphere, the animals breathe the oxygen. This is a cow if you weren't certain. Then the animals breathe out carbon dioxide that the plants need for photosynthesis. And then plants release the oxygen during the photosynthesis back into the atmosphere, and the cycle starts all over again.
Mm-hmm.
So these are kind of cool. These are called anchor charts, and these are things that you can actually do to help you remember cycles like these. But we're going to go ahead and link them below so that you can see as well, and move on to an activity that we have that's all about plants.
That's right. And we know that plants and animals that live in water have to have special adaptations that help them to survive and grow. So we've designed and made simple models ourselves to look at some plant adaptations, and we're going to learn how plants survive in the water.
Yes. Plants have adapted to living in water, which is so weird because we just told you all about the life cycle of plants that exist in the soil, right? So these are really cool water plants like the mangrove, cypress trees, kelp at the bottom of the ocean, and beautiful water lilies. All right, so Danielle has shared with us a couple here. We're going to talk about a few of these adaptations that the plants might have and that helps them live in the water. Let's make, can you go ahead and show the water hyacinths, for example? Yes, awesome. So these weird looking plants are beautiful, but they have adaptations to help them survive in the water. So they have these hollow bulbous stem below each leaf. You can see them there, right? These allow the plants to float, keeping the leaves and flowers above the water so they don't rot.
Okay, so can we switch to the mangroves? Okay, so thank you. So mangroves also have some adaptations. They grow in shallow ocean waters. Their adaptations include long roots to hold them in place in the soil underwater. Their stems grow high above the water so the leaves can get sunlight.
Water lilies are super cool and pretty. They are a water plant that has flat leaves that float on the water's surface.
Yeah, you're right. Do you know how they float like that?
The leaf veins are filled with air.
Awesome job. That's correct. Their roots are also anchored in the soil below. Water lily leaves also have a waxy coating. This prevents them from absorbing water and reflects heat from the sun away from their leaves.
Ocean plants have adaptations that allow them to adjust to moving salt water. The kelp plant has a flexible stem so it can easily move from the water's current. Seaweed plants have developed thick waxy coating on their leaves to prevent salt water from being absorbed.
That's right. So now on to our activity for today. My friends here and I have already made our plants, so I'm going to let them describe the materials that they used when creating them.
Well, so this is my plant, and we used craft foam sheets We had to get creative because they started out as being Christmas trees. So they used to be Christmas trees, and we had to cut them to the shape that we wanted them to be. And then we had to, we used yarn or string. We used pipe cleaners and a bin with some rocks and water in it.
So we used what we had available, but you could use anything you have at home. Some other things you could use are aluminum foil, wax paper, paper clips, and a stapler.
The first thing we did was decided what plant we wanted to design and which materials we needed to make it.
Then we actually designed our plants.
So now we're going to test our models and see if they actually have the proper adaptations to survive in our water environment and work. So we put some rocks and sand at the bottom to represent the bottom of a lake or a stream, ocean, or pond that our plant lives in. And now we're going to try to put our plants in and see what happens. My string won't even sink.
Yeah.
Mine won't either. So wait.
All right, I'm going to take
Up a little.
a rock. And
Yeah, I might use a rock to get it to sink.
Yeah, my strings won't sink either.
Yeah. Okay, I'm just gonna, there we go.
Rocks to help us out, get it kind of buried in there like it would if it was real roots, right?
yeah.
We-
So I would say after I got my roots linked in there underneath my rocks, which I'm not sure you can really see, but after I got that done in there, it seems to work really well. The foam craft paper is floating and my flower is standing upright. So yeah, overall I would say success.
My roots are like the little like pipes that I put are kind of holding it up, and then the plant is above the water.
That looks just like a mangrove.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, so what do you guys notice about Danielle's? A couple things about hers, and I'll go ahead and pin yours real quick.
The water just brushes off the waxy leaves.
Yep, it does. All right, does anybody have anything that they want to talk about their plant?
So I don't know if you guys knew, but mine is just a simple weed because weeds are literally everywhere. They're everywhere. Every place that you don't want them to be. So I thought maybe it will survive in water because you can find a weed anywhere.
Yeah, they survive anywhere, right? All right, guys, thanks for joining us today and for giving us ideas on what you want to learn about. If you have any special requests, please email us or reach out to us on our Axoschools social media accounts. The activity we just did, as well as some really other fun ones like making art out of chlorophyll or seed dispersion. Those are all linked below, so you can go ahead and try those out and let us know what you think, and we will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.